Yes, of course. I'm delighted to. My name's Colin Grainger. A lot of people know me as the former editor of the Newham Recorder, which I joined as a junior reporter in 1972. And I'm still quite active, even though I no longer work with the Recorder. I still work with them doing things like the toy appeal that I started 48 years ago with my great friend Kevin Jenkins, who also had a passion for the theatre. And myself and Kevin started a heritage group, which I'm now maintaining. And a lot of people also know me on social media for posting pretty poor jokes, but quite funny jokes every morning, which I started during COVID, and also for the heritage posts. And I do a lot of work for a charity called Ambition Aspire Achieve, which perhaps we'll talk about later because the Theatre Royal supports it. I think my first memory of the Theatre Royal, which I've been associated with in many guises over more than 50 years, is coming here as a schoolboy from Plaistow Grammar and seeing Shakespearean productions or workshops or things like that. And then I started at the Recorder in 72 and we saw an excellent production called Costa Packet, which was really taking the mickey out of the Brits, just getting used to going abroad, and very funny, very hilarious. And that was the first of many, many, many Recorder outings to the theatre. And so that was my introduction to the theatre, and it just went on from there. And, I was lucky enough to meet the great Joan Littlewood and interview her quite a few times when there were building sites outside, unlike now where I'm looking out to a statue. And also had a great friendship with Philip Headley and also Murray Melvin, whose room we are in. Yes, gladly. In effect, for quite a long time, actually. It was a production called Wild Justice. I think it was in the 80s, with Anita Dobson and Carl Harman and a few other actors that were all exceptional. There was very little scenery. It was just the two of them, three of them occasionally. My wife and I both think it's the best thing we've ever seen. It was pretty powerful, very emotional. And there are so many memories over the years. Not insignificant is the pantomimes, because we came to 49 in a row before COVID stopped it. So we have managed now 50. But all of those have so many happy memories because combining the two, Anita and the pantomimes, we used to come as Recorder outings. Then when I got involved with my children's PTA, we used to stage plays, and then which the kids loved. But I mentioned the Theatre Royal Pantos, and that then became a fantastic outing. We used to bring 2 coachloads of people here. And then as we left the junior school, it came down to more of a family and friends outing. But it was always a joy, and I don't think I've ever seen a bad show at the Theatre Royal. And also the connection with Anita. Shortly after that, Philip Headley, the artistic director, who's a lovely, lovely man, he actually offered a few years previously, if there was a celebrity that was available in a particular place, to come down and open our summer fair in Romford. And this was a whole chain of celebrities who helped to bring the crowds in. And Anita, I can honestly say, we weren't allowed to say until the week before that she was coming, and our normal attendance was probably 5,000 or 6,000, and I think 15,000 to 20,000 people turned up that day. But it also sticks in my memory because Philip said to me, can you come and pick us up, which I did. And he said, sometimes Anita can be very quiet, but if she's enjoying it, she'll stay all afternoon. And that's exactly what she did. But the thing and a story that I probably do tell quite a lot because it's quite funny, and it was the early days of mobile phones. And obviously because of the logistics, I'd borrowed our photographer's mobile phone, our photographer, Steve Poston. And the phone rang, it's on my seat, obviously being a law-abiding driver, I didn't pick it up, but Anita did, answered it, and of course the voice at the other phone said, "Who's that? Is that Steve's girlfriend?" And she said, "No, it's Anita Dobson." So I probably can't repeat what the bloke said at the other end of the phone, but there probably were quite a few bits of colourful language in it, and Anita was just I'm rolling over in laughter. Philip smiling. I've got no idea really what's going on because I couldn't hear all of the conversation. Then she put it on loudspeaker, and when the guy finally realised she was telling the truth because she told him she was in the car with me, one of Steve's workmates, and well, his editor at that point. And he said, "Well, can you tell Steve his tyres are ready?" But from that moment on, it was just she was just an angel, and obviously she's Lady Anita now. But she did everything we asked. I did in fact give her a Rice Park School T-shirt, which I'm sure she never used. I did say, "You can use this to clean your car." She said, "Oh no, don't be silly." But she stayed all afternoon, judged everything and more. And in those days, we used to have a thing where the parents were putting stocks, so obviously that made a great picture. And he's got pride of place in my family album, and I occasionally repeat it on social media. But yeah, the fun and the joy of that, and then seeing her, having seen her, being deadly serious and doing what she does best. But obviously that was at the height of her fame with EastEnders, and the charity that I'm a trustee of, we'd organised a fun run, and there were signs everywhere because Leslie Grantham, who was a screen husband, this is the episodes, and we went on for ages about them constantly having a war, and there were banners up outside Tate and Lyle's, and it was great fun. I remember the picture that came with it because it's often repeated and nicked by people on social media, which was her standing on a pile of rubble outside. And obviously there are lots of stories in Joan's book, which I have indoors, signed copy, and various other things. But it was her passion for the kids and literally taking kids off the street, and literally, if you read the stories about Barbara Windsor and how, she thought Joan was the cleaner because she was sweeping up outside, and how she sort of transformed her in from a very nervous actress. But the interview was particularly about the theatre workshop, which was just housed a little way from the theatre outside in the Portal Cabin, and various classes that they had for kids. And I've got to say, it was very early in my career, and I was a bit in awe of her, and because people had said, "Plum, you're lucky being trusted with that interview," but I think because they thought it was Colin's going to interview her about what she does with kids, that people in the office, that's fair enough, let him do that. But yeah, and that was part of the growing up technique as a journalist, because you can be learn certain things, and you can be taught shorthand and various other things, and you can go to journalism training college, which I did. Which was quite a laugh for a number of different reasons, so I won't go into it. But no, it was every interview and everything you do as a journalist, even if it's not degrading church jumble sales or charity events, because that's a massive part of our community to say. But there's a follow-up in every story, and obviously interviewing Joan, it was about her and the passion she had for the kids. And obviously, what I can say is I saw a few kids there, and I saw their faces much later on, either on the telly or on theatre, and that was what she was all about. It was a great experience, and the same goes for Philip, really, and of course the dearly departed Murray Melvin, who, like me, had a passion for history. And I used to give him pictures from the recorder, and if we needed something from the archives, Theatre Royal got a credit in the same way the recorder got a credit. But I would give him contact strips, little tiny prints, and then he would want to get the best picture he wanted, which are probably housed in his room somewhere, and probably on the Theatre Royal website. But I owe a great deal to Murray and to Philip, of course, who, not strong-armed, but I think he gently persuaded, because we had no internet and no social media then, and obviously, the people who came, I'm sure, because I know it's a fact that everybody was watching Anita Dobson on EastEnders, but when they heard she was in a play, they probably came from Romford to see the play. So Philip knew that it was good for the Theatre Royal, because it wasn't only that, it was, although that was a story about a school in Romford, because it was Anita Dobson who was appearing in Stratford, that got in the paper that I edited. You know, I wasn't edited quite then, I don't think. I'm not mistakenly said, I think I was the news editor or assistant editor then, but and that was the way we communicated. You know, people actually spoke to each other on the phone in those days and didn't rely on social media. But no, it was a fantastic experience for me as a young journalist. You know, much enjoyed. I think, if you don't mind me plugging my ex-paper,
Yeah.
one of our slogans that we used to have was more than a local newspaper. And I think the Theatre Royal is much more than a theatre because it is a massive part of the community. You know, every single show it's having, the way it's evolved over the years, I think people like John will be absolutely blown away. I'm very proud of what the theatre does now, because the shows reflect what is Newham's melting pot of a community. It doesn't discriminate against everybody. It does everything it can to help, you know, people who have access problems to get here. It does various deals that, you know, help people. But from my own experience, you know, the paper, my former boss and I, Tom Duncan, started a toy appeal for needy children with a charity which was Community Links to start off with. But for the last 8 years has been a charity called Ambition, Aspire, Achieve, which took over the appeal because the guy, Kevin Jenkins, who founded Links with his friend Dave Robinson, started the separate charity when Community Links moved in a different area. And when we started that, we were trying to provide 500 toys for needy kids, and we used to get celebrities to launch it, or not, depending on what happened. But it involves everybody from Paperboy donating their pocket money, children donating their pocket money, to pensioners donating their pension, or sadly not at the moment, their winter fuel allowance. But it's, sorry, I digress. But it involves everybody in the community, and the Theatre Royal supported it for every one of those 48 years. We used to have drop-off points, but for security reasons, we had to slow that down and cancel some of it. But in one way or another, whether it's putting up posters, putting in notices, they would publicise it in programmes. Even got me to write something for the programme a few times, I think. They certainly did, when I've been coming to the panel over 25 years, they did a piece in the programme. But yeah, it's, I think every production is done with a lot of TLC, and it's, you know, I've never stopped coming. I've got no reason to stop coming. It's something that's a big part of my life and a big part of the community. And you can see how much people value the shows, and you can see whether it's at a panto or a more serious situation, or even a music gig. And one of our freelance photographers, Johnny Mundy, was the Theatre Royal's photographer for quite a while. And I'm involved with a lady called Marietta Evans and a partner in crime doing documentaries, Neil Cole. And we did a look back at Newham in the 60s, and we did 3 segments, one about Tate Institute in Silvertown, another about the Granada as it was in East Ham, where the Beatles did their first London gigs, and the Theatre Royal and Joan Littlewood and the history. And that documentary is now available on Amazon if you want to watch it. But no, it's involved me personally in a lot of ways, a lot of unexpected ways. But I know community is an oft overused word, but that is what it is. It's part of the community, and for so many different reasons, and that's why I love it so much. So. So much. I think from a family and personal point of view, it's been a great place to bring my wife, or girlfriend, as she was when we first came, and I introduced her to Costa Packet in 1972, and following on that, from that, the recorder party that we always followed when we came to a Theatre Royal show. Coming here as husband and wife. And then seeing so many plays. I mean, I'd love to write them all down, but my memory's not that good. But no, we then were lucky enough to bring the kids who came to loads of pantos with us. Well, probably 12 as kids. Secondary school sometimes a bit harder to bring them, but and then of course their kids, and our friends' children and our friends' grandchildren, and so as I said earlier, the community aspect of it. And because even though I'm no longer editor of the Recorder, the toy appeal that I've mentioned, that the theatre has supported for all of its 48 years, that means it has a special place in my heart. And to be perfectly honest, my daughter lives in Exeter now with her children, and my son lives in Buenos Aires, where I was the editor of a paper out there. And when they come over, we always try to see a show. When my daughter comes up from London, we try to do that as well. But also, if we're just meeting, we come to the pub, if it's for a comedy night or whatever. So I don't think I can underestimate what it means to the community in Newham, and how I've seen so many shows in so many theatres. And the great thing in my life has been how the borough as such, being the melting pot it is, exists. There's never going to be a time when there's not a conflict, and there's never going to be a time when the newspapers don't report murders and various nasty things. But in general, I think people do get on with each other, and that's mirrored in the community and in the audience in the theatre hall. And whether it's the cast of the panto chucking sweets and the kids getting them, or whether it's watching a deadly serious show, or I've seen so many musicals, I suppose, as well, but music shows performed here, Manfred Mann, and so many that could jump out and tell me. But that's why it is a big part of life, and all I can say is it's great that it's reached its 140th birthday, and happy birthday to the theatre roll. Or Stratford East. Old school people still say theatre roll, Stratford. But especially when I'm retweeting stuff, I have to put out Stratford East. But no, it's I'm happy that I've now reached the age of 70, and probably for certainly more than half of that, probably 56 years, it's been a big part of me enjoying the theatre experience. Because as a child, in my generation, that wasn't necessarily a thing you did that often. You might have, growing up in North Woolwich, I walked through the foot tunnel to go to the Odeon, and we might have got a bus to the Granada, but coming to the Theatre Royal, that was something that you treasured. And as I said before, the audience of seeing Shakespeare and listening to how it should be wrote. No, it's just a fantastic place. What can I say? Thank you.